Welcome to Openbooks. We bring you a variety of audiobook novels, ranging from thrilling suspense to sci-fi adventures. Whether you're commuting, enjoying some leisure time, or winding down before bedtime, Openbooks is here to accompany you. Alan's emotions were like being struck by a merciless storm, filled with despair and frustration as he watched his life flip overnight. From the moment he became a single father, he was consumed by endless helplessness and unease. On this particular morning, when Alan received the news of his ex-wife's departure, his world collapsed like a crumbling building. He tried to ground himself in reality, but the pain in his heart couldn't be disguised. Standing silently in the empty living room of his home, he felt the oppressive weight of loneliness and helplessness. Alan attempted to find a glimmer of hope, only to discover that his son had also been devastated by this family storm. His son's eyes had lost their former brightness, replaced by a subtle depression and loneliness that was hard to detect. He tried to communicate with his son, but found himself unable to reach the loneliness and pain deep within him. In this lonely and silent house, Alan struggled to restore normalcy to his life. However, each day felt like a bottomless pit, suffocating him with helplessness. He tried to reclaim the smiles and joys of the past, but found it impossible to do so. In the quiet of the night, as he lay alone in bed, reminiscing about the past, tears silently seeped out. He felt incapable of handling it all, unable to shake off the despair and loneliness in his heart. In the darkness, he felt trapped in an inescapable prison. However, despite feeling hopeless and helpless, Alan knew he couldn't remain submerged in darkness forever. He was determined to find a way to break free, to rediscover the meaning and hope in life. Though the road ahead was filled with unknowns and challenges, he believed he could bravely face it all. Thus, even in the face of despair and setbacks, Alan maintained his faith in the future. He knew that the journey of rebirth as a single father would be difficult, but he believed he could overcome everything and rediscover happiness for himself and his son. Alan deeply felt the inner closure of his son, which made his mood even heavier and more anxious. Every communication with his son felt like facing a thick wall, unable to penetrate the loneliness and silence within. On a sunny afternoon, when Alan tried to share some concerns and love with his son just sat there silently, with eyes full of estrangement and incomprehension. He tried to find a way to reach his son's heart, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through his son's silence and closure. In a chance encounter, Alan discovered a secret about his son, which left him even more shocked and confused. He tried to talk to his son, but his son just responded indifferently with a few words, then turned away. Alan felt like he was separated by an invisible wall, unable to establish a real connection with his son. However, despite facing difficulties and challenges, Alan did not give up his love and care for his son. He knew his son needed time and space to face his inner world, and all he could do was to accompany his son and wait for the moment when he would open up. On a quiet night, as Alan sat quietly by his son's bedside, he felt a hint of warmth and kindness. Although his son's gaze remained cold and distant, deep down in his heart, Alan knew he had touched his son's soul. So, Alan decided not to be anxious and impatient anymore, but to treat his son with more patience and warmth. He believed that as long as he gave enough love and care, his son would eventually open up and establish a real parent-child relationship with him. Alan stood in his exhausted home, facing the chaos and loneliness all around him. A determined fire ignited within him. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to tackle the problems before him and rebuild a happy life for himself and his son. He began by tidying up the room, sorting through items one by one, wiping away the dust, restoring the room to cleanliness and order. This was not just to create a comfortable living environment, but also to express his love and care for his son. Next, Alan set about organizing his son's life and education. He invested a lot of time and energy into researching schools and curriculum, ensuring his son received adequate education and nurturing. He gathered various educational resources and learning tools to help his son make breakthroughs and progress in his studies. Furthermore, Alan started to pay attention to his own health and lifestyle. He adjusted his dietary habits, focusing on nutritional balance and healthy eating. He personally cooked every day, preparing delicious meals for his son, carefully crafting each dish in the hopes of bringing warmth and happiness to his son. Alan paced around his son's room, his gaze falling upon the sodden stuffed toy on the bed. A pang of sorrow gripped him as he realized that his son's inner turmoil might be more complex than he had imagined. He squatted down, gently stroking the doll, feeling a wave of helplessness wash over him. "Alan, are you here?" A gentle voice came from outside the door. It was Lily, Alan's close friend. She observed Alan's expression, understanding dawning upon her, as she entered the room and sat beside him. "What's wrong, Alan?" Lily inquired, her eyes filled with concern and curiosity. Alan took a deep breath, then proceeded to confide in Lily about his son's situation. He described his son's loneliness and unease, as well as his own feelings of powerlessness and anxiety. "I really don't know what to do, Lily," Alan said, feeling trapped in an inescapable dilemma. Lily listened quietly to Alan's words, then gently patted his shoulder, smiling. "Alan, sometimes the simplest solutions are right beside us. Perhaps your son just needs more companionship and love." Alan began to ponder Lily's words. Maybe she was right. Perhaps he needed to invest more time and energy into understanding his son's inner world. The next day, Alan decided to arrange a special activity. They went to an amusement park together. "Look, Dad, there's a carousel over there. Let's ride it." The little boy exclaimed excitedly, pulling Alan's hand, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Sure, sweetheart, let's go together." Alan nodded with a smile, following his son to the carousel. They waited in line, the son's mood particularly ecstatic, occasionally hopping with anticipation to get on the ride. Finally, their turn came, and Alan and his son sat together on the carousel, feeling it slowly rotate, their emotions rising and falling with it. "Dad, I'm so happy. This is so much fun." The little boy exclaimed loudly, his smile warm like sunshine, melting Alan's heart. Next, they ventured to the roller coaster, eagerly chatting and anticipating the thrilling experience as they waited in line. As the roller coaster slowly ascended, the son held Alan's hand tightly, his expression filled with excitement and anticipation. As the roller coaster plunged down rapidly, their hearts soared with the speed, screams echoing throughout the amusement park, their laughter becoming the focal point of the entire park. They then went on the Ferris wheel, gazing at the distant scenery, leaning closely to each other, admiring the cityscape below with its scattered lights. "Wow, Dad, look at that huge neon sign over there. It's so beautiful." The little boy excitedly pointed to a distant spot, his eyes shining with excitement. "Yeah, son, it's really beautiful. City nightscapes always bring a sense of peace, don't they?" Alan responded with a smile, watching his son's expression, feeling warmth and joy in his heart. The little boy turned his head, his eyes filled with curiosity and excitement as he began to talk to Alan about his recent school life, sharing bits and pieces with enthusiasm. Alan listened eagerly, nodding occasionally in understanding and encouragement. "Dad, our school recently had a soccer competition, and our team did really well. We ended up winning the championship." The little boy excitedly told Alan, his face adorned with a proud smile. "That's fantastic, son. You must have worked really hard to win the championship. I'm so proud of you," Alan said, touched. As Alan and his son returned home, they walked into the living room, sitting on the couch, the distance between them seeming to diminish bit by bit. Alan gently patted his son's shoulder, smiling. "Did you have fun today, son?" The son looked up, a hint of a smile flickering in his eyes, nodding. "Yes, Dad, I had a great time. Thank you for taking me to the amusement park." A sense of contentment washed over Alan's heart. He felt that his efforts had finally paid off. He tightly held his son's hand, saying, "It's okay, son. As long as you're happy, I'm happy." They exchanged glances, and in that moment, their souls drew closer. They talked about the fun they had at the amusement park, sharing their feelings, and the distance between them grew closer and closer. Alan held his son's hand tightly, determined to play the role of a mother and build a closer relationship with his son. He understood deeply that his son needed not only material satisfaction but also emotional warmth and companionship. So, Alan decided to move to a small apartment, hoping that this new environment would bring them a fresh start. Though the apartment was small, it was filled with a cozy and warm atmosphere, giving off a sense of home. Opening the door to the kitchen, a rich aroma of food greeted Alan. He decided to cook a delicious dinner with his own hands, bringing a hint of warmth and comfort to his son. He opened the refrigerator, took out various ingredients, and began carefully preparing dinner. In the kitchen, Alan's presence exuded warmth and tenderness. He busied himself but felt satisfied and joyful. He wanted to use his love and care to create a warm and happy family for his son. That evening, as each delicious dish was served on the table, his son's eyes sparkled with anticipation and excitement. He sat quietly at the dinner table, waiting for the dinner prepared by his father. "Son, come, try this dish and see if it's tasty." Alan smiled at his son, his eyes full of anticipation and affection. His son picked up his utensils and tasted the dishes carefully. His brows furrowed slightly, then suddenly, a bright smile spread across his face. "Dad, this dish is really delicious. Thank you for making dinner for me." His son's voice was filled with surprise and gratitude, his eyes filled with satisfaction and joy. Alan's heart swelled with happiness and touched, knowing that his efforts were not in vain. He was determined to use more love and care to create a warm and happy family for his son, filling their lives with hope and brightness. Alan stood in the kitchen, his face showing signs of fatigue. Despite his declining health, his sole belief was to do everything he could for his son. Taking a deep breath, he pushed aside his unease and weariness. His son sat at the dining table, watching his father's busy figure with eyes full of love and gratitude. "Dad, you look tired. Can I help?" the son asked with concern. Alan smiled gently, patting his son's head, and said, "Don't worry, son, Dad will be done soon. Just focus on eating." With trembling hands, he began preparing the ingredients. Tomatoes, onions, garlic, vivid colors danced in his hands as he skillfully chopped them into pieces, ready for cooking. The enticing aroma wafted through the air, making his son's stomach growl with hunger. "Dad, I'm so hungry. What are we having today? The son asked excitedly. How about some tomato spaghetti today? Alan replied with a smile, knowing it was his son's favorite. And so, Alan commenced his culinary performance. The aroma of tomatoes and onions filled the air, making mouths water. He stirred the ingredients with seriousness and focus, as if having a conversation with the contents of the pot. Finally, plates of steaming hot tomato spaghetti were served, emitting irresistible fragrances. Alan and his son sat at the table, savoring the delicious meal. "Dad, why are you so good at cooking?" the son asked curiously, admiration and curiosity shining in his eyes. Alan turned to his son with a smile and said, "Because I want the best for you, son. I know you love tomato spaghetti, so I've worked hard to perfect it." His son felt his father's love and care. "Dad, I'm really grateful to you," the son said, his voice filled with genuine emotion. Alan gently patted his son's shoulder, saying with a smile, "Nothing makes me happier than seeing you smile while eating. I'm willing to do anything to make you happy." As Alan looked at his son's smile, his heart filled with contentment and happiness. He knew his efforts were worth it. If you enjoyed today's story, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. Your support is the driving force behind our continuous creative journey. Look forward to the next episode, where more exciting stories await you at Open Books. Thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, goodbye.